Good morning. Denise Dryden here. I'm out on Bainbridge in front of my very powerful tree because there just seems to be so much big stuff going on that the tree seems to anchor me. So I can sit here and talk to you and share with you some of the things that have been going on. So today, I'm a blender. I put really bizarre things together and then I play with them. And I play with them with about 5 hours sleep because last night was the solstice and it was way too much fun to play. So today we're going to talk about Capricorn just started. We're going to talk about Kenny Rogers, Susie Miller, Millennials, and Gen Zers. How's that? We're just going to stir it all up and play with it. And let's just go see where it goes, right? So, all of a sudden I'm thinking, what do I want to talk about this next week? And I keep hearing this, 1960s song, what condition my condition is in. Now, the fact that I'm singing this is hilarious. It's just like this deep 60s sort of counterculture song that just kept like nagging at me. And I thought, there it is. I have to go get that song and look it up. So it was written by Mickey Newbury in 1965, and then Kenny Rogers with his first edition band played it, and Glenn Campbell's in there, and they're all these old guys that we know now as sort of country singers are playing this sort of counterculture psychedelic song, and they're jamming on the guitars, and it's cracking me up. But this song has some lyrics that are sort of interesting. It says, I pushed my soul into a deep dark hole and then I followed it. And I thought, this is so perfect for Capricorn right now. And so that's why I wanted to start. Kenny Rogers' 1968 first song that went gold was What Condition My Condition Is In. And it's been covered like so many times all the way up until like last year. It's still being covered. And if you just go on your either YouTube or any of your search engines and just look at how many people have played this song, it's pretty amazing. So when I go to condition, I defined it, of course, and condition is a state of something. It's the appearance, the quality, or the working order, right? It's circumstances that are affecting the way in which people live and work. So it's about circumstances, it's about appearance, and it's about having sufficient influence on or a desired state of use. Your car's in good condition, your relationship is in good condition, so it's a state of being, and it's a way that we sort of check in, how are things really going? And so this condition thing, I want you to just hold on to that because we're going to take that theme through this morning. So Capricorn started this morning at midnight on the 22nd, December 22nd through January 20th. And it's the 10th sign in the zodiac. It is that horned goat, that sort of, bizarre looking little goat. Sometimes it has a fish tail. You can look at the different signs on it. And it's an earth sign. It's an earth sign in its cardinal, and it is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is sort of this stern father figure. And Saturn runs Capricorn, and Capricorn is all about structure, our bones, our foundation. The way that we take our life into boundaries, into containment, into what works, what doesn't work. So it's like this structural kick-ass sign, right? And it's where we also set our priorities and our ambitions. And so, with this particular Capricorn, we haven't been in the Saturn Capricorn energy. I think we started it in 1982, 1983. So go back and figure out where you were, what was going on in your family system, what were you being impressed with, imprinted on, what choices were you making in 1982, 1983, if you were even born. Some are super young, so we'll see. So in the tarot card, Capricorn is the devil. And the devil is all about conditioning. It's about how we are imprinted, how we are programmed, what sticks and what doesn't, what we decide to keep and what we decide to let go of. And so with this Saturn-Pluto conjunction on January 12th at 8:59 a.m., we are going to be exploring our deepest conditions. So if you're not familiar with what conditions you have on life, now's the time to go find out. Because it's going to be, Saturn's like this stern, like, have you been doing your homework? And you're like, yeah, I have. I think I have. I hope I have. And it doesn't look like I have because I have work to do, right? So it's when we explore these deep shadows and that there's this push. It's pushing on us to end or to finish or to deal with something that started in the early 80s. Last time that this Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn was in 1518. I think I've mentioned it before. This is when Martin Luther nailed the articles up on the Catholic Church and sort of went against the Pope, went against Catholicism and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. That started the Reformation. The Reformation started the Renaissance. And all of these new concepts came into being when this Saturn and Pluto conjunct in Capricorn starts. So, I know astrology might not be your gig, but I'm starting to put it in context with history, with cultural stuff, and it has meaning. So now I'm going to throw Susie Miller in there. She's a phenomenal resource for me. She works with kids on the spectrum, family systems, channeling energy. And so she does this monthly call called the Collective Consciousness of Children. And, what we went through in this call was that we're moving from a linear perspective into cyclical, sort of multidimensional. And what does that really look like? For Susie, we've been using, as we've been coming in one generation after the other, and I'm going to be the first one to say, I was different. I was really athletic and I loved community events. I was not a good student in high school. I didn't know how to learn in all K through 12. I didn't start learning until college, and that was only because of one professor who sort of saw how I learned. So there's these strategies that we adapt, these strategies that we pick up and we pass from generation to generation to generation. And we imprint and we condition and we program these strategies onto our children, our partner, into our inner circle. And we teach them what we know. Like, this is how, when it gets rough, this is what you do. So an example would be, if you're struggling in a certain topic, a certain subject, you absolutely have to have that subject because you have to have that grade in order to get to the college that you want. So let's get you a tutor, or let's get you some more homework time. And that may not be what that kid wants, right? So in the last couple of decades, we've been seeing some really big changes in our kids. And, I've been in the therapeutic industry, both in admissions and coaching young adults, and now coaching parents of teenagers and young adults for the last 25 years. So what I've been seeing, and what we're starting to see, straight across, if you go to the different educators and you go to the different energy workers, is that we're seeing an increased level of sensitivity, awareness, intuition, responsiveness, receptivity to the environment. Our sensory systems are growing in leaps and bounds, and we're seeing creative, cyclical energy and thinking. And I'm going to identify that as a much more feminine energy, but it's been starting now for the last 20, 30, 40 years. I'm thinking probably the late 70s is when, in a critical mass, we started to see an enormous amount of these kind of creative kids. And we attribute it to the Gen Xers, and we put it into the category of things like, latchkey kids, that they didn't have a familial structure that worked, or you can look towards any explanation that you want, but the bottom line is that it's a different level of thinking, it's a different level of being. So the baby boomers, there's some of us have had this for a long time, then there's the Gen Xers and the millennials, and we're right in the middle of all of these changes. We are, we started, we are moving through it, and now our kids are so different than we were. And we were so different than our parents were. Think 1960s, what condition your condition was in. This was a real, for those of us who are a little older, this was a real counterculture song, which this is about the man. And then we all sort of went in and started sort of traditional patriarchal things in our own versions, because that's what we knew. We copied what we had great ideas, but we also copied to some degree, or to a huge degree, what we were conditioned to do when we started getting full-time jobs, building careers, building families, having children, putting them through school systems. So how this affects us directly is that as parents, we have kids that are changing the culture. they require new skills. They require new approaches. They're intuitive. They really base everything that they do off of resonance. If it feels good, if it doesn't feel good, they can't do it. And I'm not saying this is shallow. It's almost like their entire being can't do what you need them to do. And so they love us and they want to try, and they do, but they just sort of keep imploding and imploding and imploding and isolating or acting out, or they're miserable. And so an example would be that executive functioning isn't working the same way that it was measured, in the way that we built an entire industry over tracing or tracking executive functioning skills, attention skills, how we educate, and how we look at this digital influx where kids aren't writing in cursive anymore. They don't know how to do manual math. And it's like, culture is changing. How do we adapt and change with it? Let's go into our partners, which is that it makes sense that each of us is going to go through an enormous amount of familial and cultural conditioning offloading right now. Like, I can't do this anymore. I thought I could work full time. I can't. I thought I could be married. I can't. I thought I could play this role in our marriage. I can't. Or I'm struggling with it. So how do we go into these changes? Because if you're changing, your partner's changing, and then now you're sort of morphing, and you're either morphing at the same speed, you're morphing at different speeds, you're morphing in different directions, right? So this requires curiosity and compassion and flexibility and clarity on, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need. This is who I am. These are my boundaries. This is what I know I need for my body, for me. And then also a lot of compassion on, what do you need from me? Because I can see that you're going through some of the same stuff, right? So we're doing our own work on our layers, and we want to hold our love, our partner, in respect. And we also want to be able to have some freedom to morph into who we know we need to be, because we're growing at different, we're changing and growing in different stages as well, right? So then let's take this into the work or the community model, which is, this is going to show up. This is going to show up in the way that you work, the way that you interact with others. And these old models of linear systems are in desperate need of being revised. We're seeing this in our political system right now. We're seeing this in everything, actually. We've been at it for a few years now. So we're looking at developing new kinds of ways to work, new kinds of ways to relate to each other. We're looking at flexibility. Do you want to work at home? Do you want to work here? How much time do we need face-to-face time? What happens when we have really different creative, multidimensional thinkers working with linear thinkers, right? So we have boomers, and we have Gen Xers, and we have millennials, all blending their systems and adapting. And so what we're moving towards is something that's more cyclical, and it's really foreign to those of us who are older, who've been working in linear environments for such a long time. So again, this is going to require clarity, flexibility, leadership, compassion, because we're changing. All of us are changing, right? So we have conditions to address. That's all there is to it. We have a state of being to address, and it's time. And Capricorn sort of showing up and going, so right now between, I like the voice, December 22nd, going up to this huge Pluto-Saturn conjunction in January 12th, and then ending with us here at the end of Capricorn on January 20th, is that we're adapting. We're adapting to the way that we live, the way that we provide a sense of being, the way that we work. And so what I want you to do is pay attention to, what are the influences? What's pushing? What's nagging at you? If you're going to push yourself into that deep, dark hole, go in with it and look around and go, so this is what you've been hiding for some time. It's like the best and most beautiful form of shadow work. How is this affecting you? What's getting in your way? What's opening you up? What's calling to you? And what conditions are there saying, I want you to revisit this? So this is the kind of stuff I've been doing lately, is blending astrology and Chiron and parenting and dynamics, and sort of seeing how they all blend, because it's all new information. And I'm a pioneer. I like it. I like seeing where this is all going to take us. So if you're interested, you can find more videos like this, and you can also get a hold of me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. We're going into the holidays, we're going into time off. Have a great time. Pay attention to what your conditioning is and what shows up, okay? Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.